Ladies and gentlemen, I have very pleasant duty of introducing our guest of honor, Professor Ajantha Dharmasiri. Today, Professor Ajantha Dharmasiri will be sharing his experience with us. I'm sure this would be a very valuable speech for our new graduates. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our guest of honor, Professor Ajantha Dharmasiri, to deliver the conference speech.
Honorable Chancellor, Vice Chancellor, distinguished academics, respected invitees, my dear graduates and postgraduates. It gives me immense pleasure to be with you all on this solemn and significant occasion. I consider Convocation as a commencement in consolidating competence and confidence. A new journey has just begun. Hence, at the outset, let me congratulate all graduates and postgraduates who have gathered here for their gallant path ahead. I intend to share a few thoughts on management as a learner. I believe in lifelong learning and encourage all of you to continue to be learners. Any management textbook will give the definition of modern management as a set of activities including planning and decision making, organizing, leading and controlling directed at an organization's human, financial, physical and information resources with the aim of achieving organizational goals in an efficient and effective manner. In a crude sense, management can be broken into three parts: man, age, and month. It essentially speaks about people, times, and actions. As Henry Mintzberg advocated, successful management involves interpersonal, informational, and decisional roles. Any organization can be viewed as a system comprising inputs, throughputs, and outputs. Hence, management can also be defined as human action, including design to facilitate the production of useful outcomes from a system. This view opens the opportunity to manage oneself, a prerequisite to attempting to manage others. In a typical workplace, managers have a vital role to play. Henry Mintzberg highlighted management as a practice. There are different professions, they all can embrace management as a practice. It involves art, science, and craft. I attempted to conceptualize and reflect more on this, and the details are given in Figure 1 in your booklet. It is interesting to identify manager as a poet, physician, and a plumber, to use these three simple metaphors. He or she has to engage in envisioning, exploring, and executing. As a poet, a manager shall create a vision for future in displaying his or her leadership qualities. As a physician, he or she can analyze, diagnose, resolve, and do many other tasks in exploring a scenario. As a plumber, he or she can attend to operational issues that need immediate attention in fixing things and in executing. How can we produce managers as those playing triple roles as poets, physicians, and plumbers? This is where management development comes into the forefront. It is not merely an academic activity, nor a practical skill building. It requires a holistic approach in enhancing knowledge, skills, and attitude of managers. The graduates gathered here have to be geared to this glaring reality. Having the right mindset, I see as the prime need for such an endeavor. At the first stanza of the Buddhist revered text Dhammapada states, Mano Pubbangama Dhamma Mano Setta Manomaya. This essentially means that the mind is the forerunner for all things. Whilst its supremacy has always been undisputedly accepted, what is mind has been a perennial question. Philosophers strive to describe it, while psychologists struggle to define it. As one relatively simpler definition says, mind is the human consciousness that originates in the brain and is manifested specially in thought, perception, emotion, will, memory, and imagination. Psychologists such as Sigmund Freud and William James have developed influential theories about the nature of the human mind. In the late 20th and early 21st centuries, the field of cognitive science emerged and developed many varied approaches to the description of mind and its related phenomena. In Sigmund Freud's psychoanalytic theory of personality, the conscious mind consists of everything inside of our awareness. This is the aspect of our mental processing that we can think and talk about in a rational way. The conscious mind includes such things as the sensations, perceptions, memories, feelings, and fantasies inside of our current awareness. Though the vital connection between mind and brain is obvious, how they are really linked is yet to be comprehensively understood. Because our consciousness notices everything, it observes and pays attention to us. It is aware of our thoughts, our dreams, our behavior, and our desires. It observes everything into physical form. So says Joe Dispenza, who is a neuroscientist with a biochemistry background. In his book, Evolve Your Brain, The Science of Changing Your Mind, he connects the subjects of thought and consciousness with the brain, the mind, and the body. The book explores the biology of change. That is, when we truly change our mind, there is a physical evidence of change in the brain. As we are aware, the brain is the most complex organ in the human body. The way the New Scientist magazine describes, it produces our every thought, action, memory, feeling, and experience of the world. This jelly-like mass of tissue, weighing it at around 1.4 kilograms, contains a staggering 100 billion nerve cells or neurons. The brain is suspended in a cerebrospinal fluid, effectively floating in liquid, that acts as both a cushion to the physical impact and a barrier to infections. The complexity of the connectivity between these cells is mind-boggling. Each neuron can make contact with thousands or even tens of thousands of others via tiny structures called synapses. Our brains form 1 million new connections for every second of our lives. The pattern and strength of the connections is constantly changing, and no two brains are alike. In neuroscience, we have 3 brains that allow us to go from thinking to doing to being. The thinking brain is the neocortex. Doing brain is the limbic brain. And the being brain is the cerebellum. Every time we learn something new, we forge a new synaptic connection in our thinking brain, says Dispenza. The neocortex is the corrugated brain that sits on the outside, allows us to gain information from our environment. So was we begin to learn new things. We add a new stitch to circuits that represent the three-dimensional tapestry in our gray matter. As he further explains, now it is not enough to just learn that information. It is important for us to apply what we learn, to personalize it, to demonstrate it. We have to take what we learned intellectually or philosophically. The knowledge that we have gained and apply it, personalize it, demonstrate it, and change something about ourselves. And when we do, we have a new experience. How do we activate the second brain called the limbic brain? Experience enriches the brain because when in the midst of a new experience, everything we are seeing and smelling and tasting and feeling and hearing, all of our five senses are gathering all this information from the environment. And it is sending a rush of information back to the brain through the 5 different pathways, causing jungles of neurons to organize themselves to reflect the event. These neurons begin to represent the environment and produce chemicals that begin to signal the body. That's how the limbic brain or the emotional brain works. As Dispenza further elaborates, the moment we begin to modify our behavior and we have a new experience, now we are instructing the body emotionally to teach it what it has intellectually understood. Having got 2 brains working together by now, we have mind and body in unison. It is not enough to have the experience once, but should be able to repeat it, do it over and over again with memorizing. Dispenza calls this neurochemically conditioning your mind and body to the point where your body knows as well as your brain. Ladies and gentlemen, what comes next is the state of being. That is when our thoughts and feelings are aligned to a concept and we activate that certain brain called the cerebellum, the memory center in which we have practiced it so many times. We no longer have to think about it. According to Dispenza, the process of change requires us to go from thinking to doing to being. Our hardwired thoughts, our habitual behaviors, and our memorized emotions determine who we are. And the quantum field tends to respond to who we are. Now so much our desires or what we want, but who we are being. So moving into a state of being then allows us to change not only our health, but avenues and venues in our lives. Let me connect the mind to matter. It reminds me of the popular Japanese approach called 5S. Better housekeeping, higher orderliness, enhanced productivity are some of the ways, the benefits it had all been described. It is no stranger for the Asian workplace. According to the Asian Productivity Association, the origin of this productivity technique can be traced back to heavy steel industries in Japan more than 30 years ago. 5S stands for 5 Japanese words that start with the letter S. Seiri, Seiton, Seiso, Seiketsu, and Shitsuke. An equivalent set of 5S words in English have likewise been adapted by many to preserve the 5S acronym in English usage. These are sort, set, shine, standardize, and sustain. 5S offers a systematic approach in keeping things in order. It is a visual technique of ensuring the proper housekeeping as well. As Hirano and Talbot state in 5 pillars of visual workplace, 5S forms the bedrock for productivity. Further, Osada highlights in the 5S's, 5 keys to total quality environment, it offers a pathway for quality and productivity improvements. Dear graduates, you may wonder why I attempt to connect abstract concepts with applied chores. Why mind needs 5S? This has been a question in my mind for a while. Removing clutter from the workplace is fine, but more clutter remains in the mind. Kusala nova kasala. Removing clutter from the workplace is fine, but more clutter remains in the mind in the forms of negative emotions, inaccurate perceptions, and false opinions. Even though 5S has been successfully implemented in many Asian workplaces, the depth it contains in making the participants disciplined has not been adequately captured. This is my observation. I assume this is vital for new graduate entrants to the modern day workforce like you. SERI is the starting point. Typical workplace activities include going through all tools, materials, and so forth in the plant and the work area, keeping only essential things and eliminate what is not required, prioritizing things per requirements and keeping them in easily accessible places. They are the other key actions. Everything else is stored or discarded. The way I think the deep relevance of SERI to the mind is purposefulness. In order to ensure clarity over clutter with right seeing, sammaditi in Pali, one needs to identify positive thoughts, constructive emotions, and unbiased perceptions with a clear purpose in mind. It resonates with what Stephen Covey called begin with the end in mind. This is much more difficult than sorting things in a workplace. Set typically means arranging workplace, equipment, parts and instructions in such a way that the work flows free of waste through the value-added tasks with a division of labor necessary to meet demand. It follows the practice of everything has a proper place. It is all about efficiency. As I observe, the deep relevance of Seitan to the mind is prioritizing. It requires focusing on value creation. Connecting thoughts in a logical manner with proper analysis is the need. It is in fact helps oneself to focus on tasks linked to targets in the context of overall purpose. What is connected to the purpose has to be a priority. The rest has to be set aside, to be done only when time permits. Stephen Covey and others highlighted this aspect connecting to time in their seminal book, First Things First, Palamudeta Palamutana. Say so, shine involves cleaning the workplace and all equipment and keep them organized. In a typical factory, at the end of each shift, clean the work area and be sure everything is restored to its place. This step ensures that the workstation is ready for the next user and that order is sustained. As Japanese advocate, cleaning must be done by everyone in the organization, from the directors to the drivers. Everyone should see the workplace through the eyes of a visitor, always thinking if it is clean enough to make a good impression. The way I see, ladies and gentlemen, the deep relevance of say-so to the mind is purity. This is where the spiritual dimension looms large. Pure thoughts devoid of malice, jealousy, and other negativities is what is required. Not kasala, but kusala. A shining mind is a spiritual mind empathizing with others compassionately. Dan Zoa emphasized this dimension in a trend-setting book, Spiritual Intelligence, the ultimate intelligence. Seiketsu, sustain, is all about uniformity and consistency. In a typical workplace, uniform procedures need to be ensured throughout an operation to promote interchangeability. It can also be viewed as conformance to consistent cleanup. It consists of defining the standards by which people must ensure and maintain cleanliness. Seiketsu encompasses both people and environmental cleanliness. Personal tidiness can be a good starting point. I think the deep relevance of Seiketsu to the mind is perseverance. So many startups might end up halfway through without proper completion. A mind that is geared towards perseverance will ensure continuity of a recommended habit, preferred value, or a best practice. One needs determination and dedication in order to sustain noteworthy initiatives. Viktor Frankl highlighted the need to have perseverance in sharing his Jewish concentrated camp experience in Auschwitz. Through his groundbreaking contribution, Man's Search for Meaning. Shitsuke, let me move to the next S, standardize, refers to ensuring the disciplined adherence to previous 4 S's. It assists in preventing a possible backsliding too, where things were prior to the implementation of 5S. The key word here is discipline. I think we badly need it as individuals, institutions, and as a nation. It denotes practicing 5S as a way of life. As Japanese say, the emphasis of Shitsuke is elimination of bad habits and constant practice of good ones. Once true Shitsuke is achieved, people would keep things naturally without reminders and warnings. Ladies and gentlemen, the way I see the deep relevance of Shitsuke to the mind is proactiveness, not reactiveness. Gardner captures the essence of such an approach in his insightful contribution, 5 Minds for the Future. With a proactive mind, purposeful, prioritized PO actions can be continued with perseverance. In essence, it sums up the overall application of 5S to the mind. Dear graduates and postgraduates, as we saw clearly so far, mind, matter, and managers have a coherent connection. You will be absorbed into different types of workplaces. You will be climbing the managerial ladder as a poet, a physician, and a plumber. You will be using mind before action for multiple results. Remember to commit towards continuous learning. What we are today comes from our thoughts of yesterday, and our present thoughts build our life tomorrow. Our life is the creation of our mind, so said Lord Buddha. Finally, I wholeheartedly wish all graduates and postgraduates gathered here a glorious future. May you go, grow, and glow. Thank you very much.